Good afternoon. We are live on the radio and on YouTube. Very excited today. We have a very special guest. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Randal Jenkins, and this is the Randal Jenkins Real Estate Hour on Tan Talk Radio. I'm also can see that I'm on Facebook Live over here. Hi. Anyway, I want to welcome my special guest today, Bill Yingling. Bill, I've known for years. He's a superstar manager and real estate broker. He runs the Yingling Group at LPT Realty, and he is really smart. And we are going to bring our competition in, and we're going to bring our friends in, and we're going to bring our family in. And today we are blessed to have Bill Yingling. Bill, welcome.
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it. I'm not a broker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's all good.
Oh, but you run a team.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm a team lead.
Okay. So, well, I don't know him that well.
It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. I didn't want anybody to think I was a broker.
But you're on the board and you're a director of the board and you're like a big deal in real estate.
I do what I can for sure. But yeah, I just think you have to be engaged in all aspects of the industry, the business, learn as much as you possibly can. And, it's taken years to get to that point. So it doesn't happen overnight for sure, as you know.
When I thought about all of the people that I knew that I wanted to invite to the show, you were on the top 10 list. Well, actually, you're on the top 3, but I don't want to give you a big head. So.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're an expert in quite a few things beyond real estate. You have expertise in a lot of the training and coaching skills. Share with me what helped us, make us better.
Well, I could talk about this subject for hours, and it's passion of mine. And I guess just to kind of give you start with like the backstory, right? So I was pretty much raised in the real estate business. My dad was a commercial realtor, commercial broker over in the Orlando area. And I worked with him. So I did have my license back in the 80s. And we did commercial sales, leasing, things of that nature. He was pretty old school. So I definitely inherited my work ethic from him. And then I got out of the real estate business and was in the boat business and yacht brokerage for 22 years.
Wow.
But I've been in sales pretty much for my entire life. So I've not really, I've had, odd jobs here and there where I have regular paychecks, but for the most part, that's what I've always done. I've always worked on commission. So I got back into the business in 2018. And I joined a team at KW. I was on a team, and great experience. I learned a lot. And my first year in, I was very comfortable dealing with sellers because I was used to dealing with consignments and brokerage in the boat world. So I knew how to speak to sellers, and I wasn't afraid to tell them that their house wasn't worth what they thought it was. So,
yes.
And I ended up taking 43 listings my first year in. But it took me 4 months to get my first one. So, and then after that, it just kind of snowballed, and, it's, you get that momentum going, and that's the thrill of it, and as real estate agents, you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And unfortunately, most people who, do get into the business, it's more of I watch this show on HGTV and it looks real easy. All I got to do is show houses and I'm going to make a lot of money. And as you know, that's not the way it works. Not at all.
They say the crises in realtoring is not the interest rates and the market. It's really the challenges that people watch these shows and they think you open the door and you get a check.
Right.
They have no idea the challenges of getting from here to there.
Yeah. So, and then, my wife, we've been married 25 years. Teresa, she's our ops manager. We currently have 13 agents on the team. But we jumped, she was in healthcare, she was in home healthcare, and she did that for like 25 some odd years. And she used to help me with open houses, just setting up and, getting cookies and things like that. And, I jokingly said, well, why don't you get your license? And she did. She ended up getting her license. And then she joined the team that I was on. And then COVID hit.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So we had no backup plan. We had no safety net. Because she couldn't go back to what she was doing because they basically shut it down. You couldn't go into people's houses now as a home health care person. So we didn't have a choice. And so we moved over to Berkshire. We were at Berkshire for 5 years. And initially, we just kind of grew the team organically. There's a lot of people that were on my old team that were calling me and asking me questions. And so, it kind of got to the point where they were like, well, can we just come and join your team? And so they did. And then, obviously it's kind of a revolving door. This industry is, people come and go. So there's a lot of people that have come and gone, but, we've had as many as, I don't know, 17 agents on the team. Right now we've got 13. I'm getting ready to sign a couple more. Because we made the jump to LPT about 14 months ago from Berkshire. And when we jumped, we lost about half the team because half of them didn't come with us. So we started, I think, with about 6 or 7 on the team. And so we've grown it, over the past 14 months, we're back up to 13. We got some hitters on the team. We've got some new agents. We've got some, 4 years in the business, so, most of them have some pretty decent experience, but there's a couple new ones. Got one guy, JC, he's hitting the ground running. He's brand spanking new. 3 months in, he's already closed a deal. So it's exciting. It really is.
And you are still actively recruiting?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you're taking new people with no experience as well?
I do, yeah. It's the philosophy about what we're trying to build is a little different than what it used to be, if that makes sense. And I focus a lot on mindset. I'm huge on that. I'm huge on education. And it's oddly enough, Robert Palmer, the CEO of LPT, I get to mastermind with him every week. And
Really?
it's just incredible because the guy is a wealth of knowledge. But we're rolling out a new concept. It's called Team for Life. And, the life means leads, independence, freedom, and education. And, we're noticing a trend in the industry where, and if you look at it, he talked about this yesterday, where Zillow has really opened the gates on a lot of teams now. They're really starting to increase the amount of teams that they're giving the Zillow Flex program to. And so what it's doing is it's kind of flooding the market, and then you get the competition between the teams now. Okay, who's going to recruit the most agents, and what are they going to do to get those agents to sign on their teams? And we're not all about that at all. Haven't been Zillow. I don't have anything against them. I mean, I think there's a lot of cycles in this industry, right? You'll see the hot new thing, and then 2 years later, it's not the hot new thing. So we've been there, done that. We used to spend quite a bit on Realtor.com, and we really backed way off on that. So we do offer leads, but I'm more about educating the agent, because I tell them all the time, the best leads you're ever going to get are the ones that you generate, either through open houses, networking, people that your sphere of influence, just everybody, and, agents don't like to give up half their commission after a 40% Zillow split, so you take $10,000 commission. And if you're on a Zillow Flex team as an agent, what are you going to get at the end of the day?
I'm not sure how they structure that actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, I have nothing against that. There's so many different models out there for teams. But I think, he's really hitting on something with the education, because I think an educated agent, someone who's really hungry to learn, and not just learn contracts and not just learn the basic stuff that brokerages and teams teach, but really boots on the ground, what's working, how do you handle this? How do you handle that? We were talking before, about agent motivation. How does an agent get motivated?
Well, that's one of your big deals, or one of your big things is mindset.
Yeah, huge on mindset. It's probably the most important aspect of this business, and it's a pretty, that word gets thrown around a lot, I think, and we even, in my classes and stuff, I talk a lot about it. I talk a lot about it to my agents. But I think that it's not something someone can give you. It's something, and it's not something you're born with either. I don't believe that. I think that people can learn to, create that mindset that makes them unstoppable, and, bad stuff happens in this industry all the time. It's not, roses and rainbows and sunshine. It's people, and that's what people see on social media with agents,
Only the good things.
Yeah, only the good things. They don't talk a lot about the behind the scenes stuff. Like today, for instance, I was really concerned because I had a listing, and it's under contract, and it's one of the biggest houses in the neighborhood. And the same exact model closed like 2 weeks ago for quite a bit less than the one that I've got, same model under contract for. And I just got the news today that the appraisal came back good.
Oh,
so
it's like a minor miracle.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
God bless America.
And it's stuff like that people don't see, and it's like, okay, why did that happen? And again, I'm not like bragging or patting myself on the back. I was taught, if you're a listing agent, you attend your appraisals and you back up your numbers, right? And you don't go in there and tell the appraiser how to do their job or anything, because that's like insulting to them.
You got to be diplomatic.
Yeah, but you do the work, right? You don't just leave it up to fate as to whether or not that appraiser is going to, make it the number that you need, or or make it short, right? And then what happens if it is short? What do you do? How do you handle that?
There's 4 things you can do. Stay tuned to our future shows to get those answers.
Yeah. But those are the things that a lot of people don't, they're not taught that.
The thing about it is, when you're showing yourself online on social media, those challenges are the content that people will appreciate more than just seeing a just sold or a just listed.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think, that's what people want to see. They want to see the real. They want to see the real in the real estate, not the,
Oh, I like that.
Staged or whatever.
The real in real estate.
Yeah, because it's a tough business. It really is. It's a very hard industry, and I don't think people understand that, because we don't get paid until we close on anything, right? I mean, it's one of the only jobs that you can do all this work and never get paid, because they, decided to use another agent, or they decided to rent for another year or whatever. So, and the other fascinating aspect I think about it is, clients, unless they've done business with you, they don't know what it's like to do business with you. They're rolling the dice.
They don't have loyalty.
Right. So, and I've read your book 3 times now.
Oh my gosh.
I don't just read them once. I highlight them, and I, make notes. I reference them when I'm doing trainings and stuff like that. And so I'm like, I read a lot. I try to read at least 1 book a month minimum. And, I could read more, but I don't like to read them once because there's always stuff that I miss, and I just think that that's like one of the best things that an agent can do is invest in their own education. And, you know, that's part of it is reading or, audiobooks, whatever it is. I like to flip the pages. I'm kind of old school like that. But
I'm with you.
yeah. And, the thing that I've noticed, and I've read probably hundreds of books, and, most of them about real estate and, mindset and just, like just business type books. And, the one common denominator is always mindset.
When you told me you wanted to talk about mindset, I did some research on it, and I have a little bit of content. If you don't mind, I'll
Throw
read
it out, man.
Okay.
Throw it out.
Mindset is the collection of beliefs, assumptions, and internal rules that shape how you interpret events and decide what actions to take. The important thing to understand is this: your mindset doesn't determine your potential, it determines your behavior, and your behavior largely determines your results. Now, when I got into business, I got into sales, I was a stockbroker, and we were given quite a bit of content. I grew up on Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret.
Yep.
I must have watched The Strangest Secret hundreds of times. I've watched it in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm addicted to Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. And what he says basically is that we become what we think about most. Well, that's actually different than mindset. I didn't realize that mindset determines your potential. It determines your behavior, and your behavior determines your results. So it doesn't matter that you fill yourself up with positive mental attitude stuff if you don't convert it into behavior, because behavior is what determines your results. And I've read this since I researched it yesterday, so that I would come in here more prepared, knowing that you have the leg up on this than I do.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, no, I really respect your the way that you project and the way that you put things in and the way that you present yourself. And I like to learn. In fact, that's one of my things is teach me, O Master. You walk into a room, you don't know if you're who's the smartest person in here. I better be quiet.
Yeah, I don't like being the smartest person because I always try to learn something, every day if I can. And we call them, at least I call them, and a lot of other people call them leading indicators and lagging indicators. And your behavior, it's all about execution, right? And one of my old team leads, that I was on, he used to talk about, you get these agents that are, new or inexperienced, or, maybe they come from a different field and they get into the business. So, they learn, right? And then they're just like ready, 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 ready. And they never aim and they never fire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you're not gonna get the lagging indicators without the leading indicators. The leading indicators are the execution, the phone calls, the crap that nobody wants to do, right?
And then sometimes you see agents, brand new agents, come in and they just kill it.
Yep.
Because they don't know how hard it is.
Yep.
How is it possible that this newbie who doesn't know what they're doing can come in here and just show up all the veterans who are sitting around going, how do they do that?
You know why they do it and how they do it?
Please share.
Nobody told them they couldn't.
They don't have the self-limiting beliefs of
right.
The veterans have been kicked and beaten and battered for so long. They're expecting it. And so they get beat up. And then the new person comes in. They don't know how hard it is. They think they can do well. They expect it. And then you get the results you expect. Yeah. That's mindset. And they don't even know they're doing it.
Right. Right. Well, and it's interesting that you bring up veterans because I was can't remember if I read it or if it was something I was watching, but they were talking about veterans in our industry and how difficult it is. And I've got a freaking perfect example on my team. He was career military, retired military. He's been with me longest out of all of our agents, and super nice guy. And I would talk to him, all the time about just mindset, making the phone calls. It doesn't matter if they hang up on you. It doesn't matter if they cuss at you and hang up on you. It doesn't matter, right? Nothing in your life has changed. It's the sky's not going to fall, right? And I told him this for probably a good couple years. And I've been in coaching, and it's that's the other thing I've learned. The coaches, they don't really tell you anything different. Everybody's saying the same stuff, right? We all know what we have to do. It's just we have to know what we have to do it, right? We have to know what our why is, what our motivational factors are. And he's one of our top agents now, but he struggled for a couple of years. And we had a coaching platform that we were involved in, and one of the coaches said something, and he told me, he said the light bulb went off. I was like, man, I've told you this for the past 2 years. He's like, I know, but it was just what she said, the way she said it or whatever.
Oh, is that right? So she triggered something in him.
Yeah. And he still struggles. I mean, we all do. We all struggle. Yeah. And it's like, what do you have to do to overcome that and to get out of that, right? And it was like I was talking to my wife. I remember it, distinctly. It was probably, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months ago, because listings have been sitting a little bit longer, right? It's not 2021 anymore, where you put it on MLS and you get 20 offers. And I thought I was pretty darn good at my valuations and my CMAs and figuring out what I felt the property would sell for. But we don't have crystal balls, do we? Right?
It's challenged.
Yeah, we don't
valuation.
But I've been through it before, and it's like you get a bunch of listings and they're sitting, and it's like, I told her, I said, you watch. I said, they're going to break, and we're going to get contracts, and it's going to happen like all at once, and they just start falling. And that's what happens in this business. You do have your ups and downs, and I think a lot of people try to figure out, okay, how do I make it like a straight line instead of that up and down line, right? And geez, if I had the answer for that.
That's the highs and lows of sales,
yeah,
and the challenges of dealing with the uncertainties. And buyers and sellers, they all go through their own little challenging decision making, limiting. They want what they can't have, and they get all emotional, and it's a constant challenge for salespeople in general, but certainly realtors in particular, to deal with these customers that just have expectations that the market won't allow for those expectations to be met. I talk about with some of my coaching people that I say, look, you kind of have to let them figure it out, that you can't get what you want.
Self-discovery.
The buyer or the seller has to realize that you cannot sell your house at that price. Well, somebody might be out there that is waiting for it, and maybe someone will overpay and give me my number. You can tell them all you can tell them, but they're not going to listen necessarily. And then once they've had a chance to experience no showings and no inquiries, to realize that the market isn't going to reward them for their expectations. And I talked about it last week, how the second realtor often is the one that sells the property.
Absolutely.
And my advice to any realtor out there, when they're confronted with taking an overpriced listing, explain the second realtor story to them, invite them to go list it too high, and then to call you once they realize that their expectations aren't going to be met, and let Let me be the second realtor. Cynthia Armstrong taught me that. She was in the office and she was talking about the second realtor. And I'm like, it's like a light bulb went off for me. I realized, oh my gosh, I don't want to be the first realtor.
Yeah.
I want to be the second realtor.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, and I think a lot of it too, and this kind of gets back, it all kind of circles back to the mindset. And this is my opinion, obviously, but if, and trust me, I probably turn down a lot more listings than I take. And because I'm just getting to the point where I don't want to take overpriced listings. I don't want to have something sit on the market because it does no good for me or the seller to not sell the listing. I want saleable listings. And in order to get to that point with somebody, you have to have super hard conversations, right? And if you don't have the skill set to have those super hard conversations, and this is where I think people kind of just drop off, right? Or they just don't do it because they're afraid, of losing something that they're never going to get anyways. It's if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
The hard conversations takes time to build that skill set. It really does. And guess what? Nobody can teach it to you. The only way that you're going to learn how to do that is to actually go out and do it and have the hard conversations. And yes, you're going to take overpriced listings. Yes, you're going to take listings you probably shouldn't have taken. And that's like the learning experience. That's, Gary Keller, fail fast, fail forward, fail often. Right?
There you go.
That's what you do. That's how you learn in this business is failure. And I embrace it. You have to.
It's a numbers game. And if you're not doing the numbers, you don't actually have the right to be successful. If you're working from scarcity, it's just way too challenging. Give me, in my old job as a stockbroker, one share IBM was the same as every other share. So selling IBM was easy. Selling a house is so challenging because every house is different. And you can't get a buyer to buy something unless they really want it.
Right.
I had a lady once tell me, if I have to jump through hoops to get a house, I'm not doing it. I said, ma'am, you are not getting a house because this is a hoop jumping contest. But in the old days, in my previous career as a stockbroker, I would say, give me a lead and watch me turn into mush because I can't sell to one person. Give me 20 leads, and that abundance will allow me to come across with confidence and enthusiasm and the knowledge that probably 15 or 20 of them are going to say no. But if you can work from abundance, then you can work from confidence. And one of the things you said is just the greatest line. You turn down more listings than you take.
Yeah.
And you can't say that if it's not true. At least you're not supposed to.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Sometimes my wife gets pissed about it, but because that second agent will always come around. I know that.
That's got to be
because I was that second agent. That's how I built my business. I built it on expireds and cancels.
There you go.
I was always the second agent, and and I still do a lot of expired, calling and stuff like that. And here's the other thing, and this is a tip for you agents who are calling on expireds, cancels, FSBOs. They're not cold calls. These are warm calls. These people have already listed their properties with another agent before you. So they know the process. They know what they have to do. They know what a listing agreement looks like, right? They know how the process is. Some processes are better. So it's really, it's not a cold call. It's a warm call in my mind. And, one thing too that I learned and something that I teach is monetize your no's, monetize them. Back in the day, like when you were a stockbroker and stuff, it took 5 to 7 no's to get a yes.
It took a lot more than that sometimes.
It takes about 55 nowadays,
Yeah.
So
I couldn't imagine
different.
being an on the phone salesperson.
Well, I mean, just think about the advent of the internet. Just think about how much it has changed, and the AI that's out there now. And I've been using AI as, a thought partner and a tool for 5 years. And, a lot of agents haven't even touched it yet. They, or the ones that have, they're doing listing descriptions that look like an encyclopedia, that are 20, 30 lines long. You can tell right away when
They're
you
all
pull up a
benefits.
listing. Yeah.
And people, certainly they buy benefits, but they really want to know the features.
Yeah.
It's swipe right, swipe right. How do you get them to stay on your listing long enough to see if they might be interested?
Right.
Whenever I see that word nestled,
Oh, that's, yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Not just once, about 5 times.
AI wrote that. And I hate to badmouth other realtors, but some of these listings, please, it's a 322 block home, fenced in backyard, pool, no rear neighbors. Why don't you put that on the first line?
Yeah.
I like the one where it said, and the kitchen where you can spend time with your family and your loved ones and you can make food. It's like everybody knows what a kitchen is. They've already swiped right on that one. That listing didn't get any traction.
Yeah. Well, and, there's so much that goes into it too. Photos, having professional photos done. That's like, I don't, unless it's like a piece of vacant land, but I'll still have drone shots done to show where it is in relation to, other, things like, shopping and beaches and all that. But, and that's, we're kind of getting off subject, but yeah, it really, it just gets back to that whole mindset thing. Why fear is like probably the biggest reason why people don't do what they know.
Is it fear of success or fear of rejection?
It could be all of the above.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
because
so.
once you've had the success, then it's like, okay, how do I maintain this? How do I build it even bigger? Right. And that's a growth mindset, right? The scarcity mindset, they're afraid to do it because they don't know what's going to happen, right? They could be successful or they could not be successful. But, why bother, right? And that I don't like to see that. I think it's because I think I can't remember the name of the book, but and at first when I started the team, the biggest lesson I had to learn was not everybody is wired like me. Not everybody's like me. Not everybody's driven like me. And most of your team leads and most of your successful agents are D's, or high I's.
Dominant.
And they're, but they're driven, right? And like, I'm never satisfied. We're like way up over last year, but it's like, okay, what do we need to do even more, right? Not because I'm greedy or anything. I'm just competitive.
It's just the way you measure success. It's not by what you're doing and maintaining it. It's by increasing it,
right,
and adding to it, and that's what gives you the feeling of a job well done. It doesn't matter. The money is great when it's great, but it's not the money that's motivating you. It's the desire for your version and definition of success is based on growth, and that's what's her name? Carol Dweck talks about that fixed mindset versus a growth mindset.
Yeah.
And you have a growth mindset. Let's take a moment here. Why don't you give us an advertisement about your business and what you can offer to both customers and clients, and what you can offer to any realtors who are thinking about joining your company? Because I promise you, if you're listening to this and you're a realtor and you need a leader and you need direction, Bill Yingling, the Yingling Group at LPT. He's my guest today, and I'm so happy that he's here. Bill, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Please share with us.
So, and I'm scaling, and again, this kind of gets back to my individual definition of success. I'm not a spring chicken anymore, right? And a couple of years ago, when I was really kind of focused on scaling, and I was like, oh, I want 50 agents, I want 100 agents, I want 150 agents. And I've got friends that have teams like that, big teams, like nationally ranked teams. That's probably not the direction I'm going to go. I hate to use my age as an excuse, because I don't, again, I don't, but I'm at a point in my life where I don't know if I just want to deal with all that. if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But I am trying to scale. I would like to have, 20 to 25 agents on the team by the end of this year. And if we can scale it to, maybe 35, 40, 50 agents next year, something like that, I would be happy with that. But I want to be able to get out of production. I would have to get out of production to scale that big, because I would have to focus, primarily on training, educating the agents, and being a leader for them, because that's what people want. They want someone who's going to lead them, and it's a constant work in progress. There's another book, The Full Fee Agent. I don't know if you've read that.
What's it called now?
The Full Fee Agent.
Full Fee.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, Chris Cass, the guy who wrote Never Split the Difference. He talks about, when you're dealing, and you kind of referenced it in your book a little bit too. It's more about relationship. It's not. It is a numbers game. We all know that it is a numbers game, but if you can't build that relationship and that trust, then you're not going to get that person's business, right? And he talks about how if you see a customer on the other side of the road, you don't stay on your side and scream to them, "Hey, come over here. I want to help you," right? What you do is you walk over to them, you are standing right beside them, looking at everything from their perspective, and you're saying, "Okay, I'm here. What can we do to help you accomplish your goal?" Right? You got to see it from their perspective, because perspective is reality, right? Your reality is not necessarily their reality. And that's the same with agents. And, the reason why I really love this business, and I'm not just passionate about it, I'm freaking obsessed with it, is every single deal is different. Every single person you deal with is different. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because we're all different, right? We all have different personalities. We're all different people. You have a different motivation than I do. And, and it's not a good or bad thing. It's just a fact thing, right?
My brother is a pretty successful agent at Keller Williams.
Yeah.
And he interviews his prospective clients and customers like nobody I've ever seen. And it goes along with what you just said. We don't know what their motivation is, but we can always ask them.
Yeah.
We can ask them where they're coming from, where they want to go. We can ask them about their wants and dreams and desires. And he's a master at it. He has these big questionnaires. I should send you a copy. And newer agents may not realize it, but you can just simply say, I'd love to be top of mind for you if you're thinking about using a realtor. May I interview you so that I can learn more about you?
Yeah.
And you know what people love to talk about?
Themselves.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And the challenge is you better take notes, because you're not going to remember. 5 minutes later, you're interviewing somebody else. So if you can't keep track of your prospects and your clients' needs, wants, and desires, how can you fulfill them?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's like, just to give you an example, like we use, it's a process. It's called LP Mama.
Oh yeah, I've heard
right.
of that.
And that's what a lot of the top coaches teach. They teach LP Mama, right? It's location, price, motivation, LP
MA.
LP Mama.
We know
my
it.
agents are going to kick my butt.
Oh my gosh.
Because I'm always quizzing them on that, right? But and that's a process. Again, that's a process that you have to go through. And I call it front loading, because if you can front load and get as much data and information about, what the customers are really wanting. Yeah. Okay. So location, price, motivation, agent, mortgage, and appointment, right? So that's the LP Mama. And there's a script. And if you just and as far as scripts go, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to read them verbatim and sound like a robot. I always teach them, hey, learn the scripts, memorize them, but then make them your own.
Absolutely.
Right? Put your own twist, your own personality on it.
Absolutely.
You don't have to word it exact, but and I think the reason why your brother's good and successful is because he's really learned how to ask good questions. If you learn how to ask good questions, you're not going to show somebody 25 houses. You're going to show them 5 maybe, right?
He likes showing houses. He likes to find 10 or 15 of them so that they can learn. After they've been through 5 or 6 of them, they start realizing the differences, and they start, and he's big on, no, this isn't it. And they're like, what? It's like, look at this. And he points stuff out. And I mean, he's almost gaining credibility by finding the reasons why a particular house isn't as attractive.
Right.
And maybe I don't know if that's manipulative, but that's just his style.
Well, and like you, in your book, you talked about it, about the mortgage process, and have you seen the mortgage estimate?
The loan estimate.
Yeah,
Oh
have
my
you seen the
God,
loan
the
estimate?
question nobody asks.
Right.
Realtors are programmed. They get a call and somebody says, I have a pre-approval.
Right.
Let's go shopping. But the question that they don't ask is, that's great. Did you get a loan estimate?
Right.
Because nobody says that it's negotiable, that you can get a better deal, that you can get lower closing fees,
Right.
or you can get a better interest rate if you shop around. But mortgage brokers don't want to tell you that.
Yeah.
It's my vision of the realtor function is more like an air traffic controller who, we're told, stay in your lane. You're the realtor. Let the title company do their stuff. Let the mortgage company do their stuff. You stay in your lane. But then you go to a closing and you're sitting there with the title company looking at the fees, and they're going, oh my gosh, nobody helped this poor buyer regarding these fees.
Yeah.
So the realtor, even though they're not programmed to get involved with other aspects of the transaction, I think it's really important that they realize that these functions are there and that it is in their customer's best interest to be there for them. In my book, I talked about how my first transaction, I don't know what word I can use on the radio. I got taken advantage of, and I haven't gotten. It's been 45 years ago, and I still haven't. I haven't gotten over it yet.
Well, everybody's bought their first house or whatever, and that stuff does happen. But and that brings up another thing that I like to talk about, and because most agents, they're mostly concerned with that first impression, right? But the most important impression is the last impression.
Good.
You only get one chance to make a last impression. And if your customers at the closing table and you didn't help them out, and you didn't keep in communication with them, and the lender didn't keep in communication with them, and they get that surprise additional amount, that they weren't expecting, guess who they're going to blame? They're going to blame you.
I think they're going to blame the realtor. Absolutely.
And do you think they're going to use you again?
They're going to have a bad taste in their mouth when they think of you and that transaction. And by the way, public, ask your friends and family that own a home. Ask them about that experience. And I think you're going to find a large number of them are going to complain about the mortgage nightmare that they experienced.
Yeah, the mortgage nightmare. And then, what's the number one complaint about agents?
They don't follow up.
Communication.
Absolutely.
Right? And here's a really good tip for any of you agents that are actually listening. Answer your phone.
Oh my God.
Answer your phone. I've probably gotten more deals just by answering my phone. And, I'll just be straight up with you. That is like that's part of my story of why I got back into the business. My wife and I are from the Orlando area. I told you I was in the boat business. So we were boaters, and we always wanted to live on the water. I would have preferred to go to the East Coast because I was a hardcore fishing person, but my wife loved the West Coast, and so we ended up in Gulf Harbors. But to get there, we didn't know anybody over here. I was raised in the Central Florida area. I knew nobody. And so, we were checking out different parts, Clearwater, Apollo Beach, Dunedin, Palm Harbor, Hudson, Newport Richey. And, I called, I want to say I called 5 agents to try to get set up on some kind of a, drip, MLS drip. There was one agent that called me back out of the 5. And he ended up getting our business. But the first time we showed up to start looking at some homes, he shows up in shorts and flip-flops. And, I tell the story, it's like, I don't have anything against shorts and flip-flops. Like, when I'm not working, that's what I wear.
I'm wearing shorts.
Yeah,
Full disclosure, I am
good.
wearing shorts.
So yeah, but you're not meeting a client, right? And so I'm kind of, again, I'm dating myself, I guess. I'm kind of old school, but I thought, wow. And plus there was a lot of misinformation and stuff like that. The part of my neighborhood that I live in, there's like 3 different HOAs in our neighborhood. And, he told my wife specifically that our part of the neighborhood that we were looking at, there was a community pool. Well, there isn't a community pool in the part of our neighborhood.
Oh, he was wrong.
Yeah, he was wrong.
But he answered the phone.
He answered the phone, right. So he got our business. But, I was just, and after I was kind of winding down my boat career, I was, thinking that, I really want to get back into real estate. And I just remember that. And I was like, I know I can do a much better job than that dude did, And so that's part of my why, And so I try to dress professionally. I don't go on appointments in shorts and stuff like that, I guess if you want to land base me, that's cool. I don't care. That's just me, I just feel that if you went to, like your stockbroker, right? And they were in shorts and flip flops.
No, you couldn't do that.
You'd probably question, because you're dealing as an agent, you're dealing with either helping someone sell or buy probably the largest asset they have, right?
The house? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I don't know, that's just me, right? I know some people say, oh, you're full of crap or whatever, but I don't know. I think, again, perception is reality, right? And I try to teach the agents that, and that. Remember back in the day when I used to talk about dress for success?
Yes.
Remember that?
That was for themselves as well as their customers.
Yeah.
How could you not look good? How can you not feel good when you look good?
Right. But again, looking good and actually being good are kind of, nowadays it's kind of 2 different things, right? It's not
nowadays
it's
a lot
not
of
the
people
same.
Don't look good and they don't do good.
No, I guess I'm talking about like the shiny objects, right? People, you see it on Facebook all the time. I'm sure your members, you're part of several groups, right? And, sometimes you'll see the question, oh, what's the best car do you have for a real estate agent? And you know what my answer is? A freaking paid off one. That's what my answer is.
I like it.
Don't go out and get a $800 car payment on a BMW, especially if you haven't even been in the business and haven't experienced any of the successes. And that's the other thing too. I think a lot of people don't understand. You better have some money put away if you're getting into this industry and you you don't have much of an SOI or whatever, because it could literally be 6 months before you get a paycheck, right?
Maybe 6 months before you go out and get a real job.
Or a year, right?
Absolutely.
But and again, I'm going to circle that back to the mindset thing. Most people have an employee mindset. They don't have an entrepreneurial mindset. They don't understand that this is not a 9 to 5 job. This is not Monday through Friday. I always tell my agents the weekends are for selling, right?
Absolutely.
That's when you're showing houses, going on appointments, and John Cheplack, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He always talks about that. You hunt in the morning and you eat in the afternoon. That's what you do, right? You're prospecting in the morning, setting appointments, and you're going on appointments in the afternoon. But you have to be into that schedule, and you have to have those habits, right?
I love it.
Yeah, it's not, and again, it's something that can be learned, and it definitely has to be developed. I mean, I don't do as much lead gen as I used to do, but not because I couldn't. I don't have to anymore. And plus, I've got a lot of other responsibilities on my plate as a team lead. So
let's talk about that. If you'd like to reach out to Bill, his website is the yinglingteam.com.
Yep, that's it.
Give us your phone number.
727-992-2717.
Now, if you're a realtor and you're looking to join a team with a really awesome coach and leader, what areas are you willing to accept geographically? Do you have any limits on who can call you? Will you take East Coasters or?
Well, we're cloud-based, so I don't have like a set office or anything like that. I've got agents all over the place. But we handle Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Hernando, Citrus counties. So mostly, West Coast of Florida type stuff. But, again, if I expand, I'm always open to expanding into other areas. I have no issue with that.
Well, you heard it here, people. If you have an opportunity and an interest in reaching out to Bill to either join his real estate team or to go look at houses and go shopping, this is Bill Yingling, my very great guest and smart guy. Like you said, you want to have smart guys in the room. And that's why I picked you as one of my first guests in the Randal Jenkins Radio Hour. You can find me on Facebook at Randal Jenkins, Florida Real Estate Partners. You can find me on YouTube at Randal Jenkins Real Estate. We're going to have another minute or so. Feel free to close us out however you'd like, Bill.
Well, I just have to tell you that, your book was really good. It really was. I mean, and I read a lot. There's a lot of good content in there. There really is. I mean, I'm training my agents on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah, it's true because it's probably not anything that we haven't heard, but it's good. And it's
Bill, I really
relevant.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This has been a real thrill. Thank you everyone for watching Randal Jenkins Real Estate Hour. Wishing everybody the best. Bye now.
WTAN, Clearwater,
FM 106.1,
WDCF, Dade City,
FM 102.3.
Listen.
This is a Fox News alert. The deal is signed. I'm Lisa Lacera. The 60-day memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran signed by President Trump. A White House official tells Fox News it'll give Tehran waivers to sell oil and create a framework for $300 billion in aid. President Trump, now in Paris for the G7 talks, insists the U.S. is not putting up any money. And he says he will allow Iran to have some missiles, but not nuclear ones.
If other countries have them, it's a little bit unfair for them not to have some. A ballistic missile is not the same thing as what we're talking about when we talk nuclear.
The deal also calls for Iran to allow ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The MOU is expected to be signed on Friday in Switzerland. As expected, the Fed is holding